Welcome everybody to yet another live interview with Become a Fearless Father and Shane Larson. Shane, thank you so much for being on. This live interview has been in the making for a while, right? We've been talking about this for months. Then I couldn't, then you couldn't, then I couldn't, then you couldn't. And finally, we got a date and time that worked best for both of us. So I am really excited, man. Thank you so much.
Man, I'm excited to be here. It's been since November, December timeframe, and so finally we were like, "Hey, let's just do it. Let's get it done and get it done." So it's awesome. I'm excited to be here, man.
Exactly, awesome, man. Before we go into your origin story and a little bit more background of who is Shane, right? I got a question for you, man. Because one of the things that stands out most, there's more things, but there's one thing that stands out the most from you, man. That is your energy. Right? We've done the OFA. That's freaking insane amount of work. I know it was the same amount of work for you. And from day one until the end, you had that high energy and that great energy to share with everybody, motivate everybody. I want to know, man, what's your secret? Where does that energy come from?
Man, that's a good question though. And you know, the energy that I have is, I guess it's a lot to do with the people that we're working with. So like in work, like you can choose, it's a choice. You can choose to be negative, you can choose to be down, but when you're working with, 6,000 people in a coaching program, which is what I do as a full-time job. I mean, you can choose to be a downer, but people will follow your lead. So as a leader, I think that goes into being a husband and a father, an employee, whatever it may be, a manager, it doesn't matter. People will follow your lead, and it's toxic. So it can be toxic if you're negative. So I choose to be excited. And then on top of that, when you do that, you see the domino effect of it, right? Like when people are like, they see it and they start being positive, and then it kind of rubs back off on you, and you're like, oh, this is awesome. And so it's just a domino effect. And it starts with a choice. And then when I see other people being positive and see the successes that they're having, it motivates me. And I think that's what the world needs a little bit more, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm glad you shared, man. That's so important that people start realizing that it's a choice, right? You wake up in the morning and say, man, I'm going to motivate the hell out of these people today because they need it, right? And
Absolutely.
They do, man. I went to the first one, and now other people are going through the OFA, right? And they telling me like it's even more intense than it was before. And man, my you know that my mom went through it as well. She was excited. She sometimes was like, oh, I can't keep up. And then you got a guy like you. It's so important, man. So I was happy with you, man. You helped me through that for sure. And I know you helped all 6,000 people, or at least the part that was actively, doing what they do through it. I love this. Here's a couple of other of our OFA members that been, I think, from the first time, because I've been connecting with them forever, Angie and Rebecca. So I appreciate both of you. Thank you for joining. Shane, for people to get into perspective, right? Let's share a little bit, like, what's your origin story, background story, but also I always want to have the people get the full picture. I like, married, how long, and how many kids are we talking about, so people get, the whole view, and then the rest of the questions make more sense.
Okay, so where do you want me to start then? You tell me, and then I'll kind of run with it. So do you want me to start with my marriage, or do you want me to start way back? Like where are we going?
That's a great question, man. So let's start off to pull the picture, man. I know you got one boy, right? How old is he?
He's going to turn 3 in August. So funny story about my boy and I, we have the same birthday. I consider him my golden boy because he was born on my golden birthday. I turned 28 on the 28th of August, 3 years ago almost, but he was born a week early. He came out like right on my birthday, was not expected at all, but that's when my wife gave birth to him. So him and I share the same birthday. It's super exciting. I call him my golden boy because it was on my golden birthday that he was born. So super awesome. He'll be 3 next month.
Awesome, man. Awesome. I'll make sure to celebrate and congratulate the both of you. That's funny because my youngest is turning 4 at the end of November. And guess what? 24th of November, exactly my birthday, man.
Oh my gosh, you're the second person I know, because there's a guy that's a friend of mine at ClickFunnels, actually. He works there with us, and his daughter was born on his birthday. That's the only 2 people I've talked to that like actually know that what I'm talking about here. So
awesome. You didn't know about me, brother. That's awesome.
Awesome.
That's cool, man. So that's it, man. Tell me about your marriage. How long you been married?
Yeah, so my wife and I have been married for 3 years in June. So funny story with that, though. Like, I want to go back a little bit with you guys, kind of give you a little bit of a background of my history. So I'm 30 years old now, but when I was 23, I was previously married. I got married in my early 20s. Unfortunately, went through a divorce right before my 25th birthday. And so we kind of went through a split. And I kind of went through this moment of life where it was kind of like I hit the deepest, darkest part of my life as far as depression, because I was 25 years old at that time. We had to sell our house. Where I thought I was going to school, finishing up college, working a full-time job, but like at that time I was like, man, my life is over. Little did I know what was going to come in the future, right? But like at that time I thought the world was crashing down on me. I was a 25-year-old, had to move back home with my parents, not for good reason, but because of what happened. And then I was trying to save up some money, and financially I was just trying to get myself set. And then a couple years later, it was about a year and 3 months, a year and 4 months later, I met my wife. I worked at a company called bodybuilding.com, and we worked over there. She ended up working there like 2 years after I started there. She showed up, and I was always opposed to dating my coworkers because that's like a code. You don't necessarily want to do that. And that's how I had met my ex-wife too. So I was like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. But you know what happens, love speaks. And so, her and I took it slow. Like I was, taking her on a few dates, and then, one thing led to another, and we were dating full time. It was great, and we made it work. At work, it wasn't awkward or anything like that. And so we officially got married in June. So like it was about a year later. So June of 2016 is when we got married, and so we just hit our 3-year anniversary. And so we're doing well. We're trying to build a new house. So we're in this like crazy part of life, Klaas. Like it's kind of crazy. Like we're selling our old house. We're building a new house. I'm back with the parents, but for good reason for a minute. It's not like for the bad reason. And we're just kind of going through that crazy part of life. We've got 3 dogs, almost 3-year-old, and we're just kind of trying to do our thing,
I hear you. I love that, man. So please don't tell me you were married on the 13th of June.
No, it was the 10th.
All right.
Oh, wow. We were about to have something else.
The 13th of June is the birthday of my oldest son. So
no kidding. Okay.
That would be really scary. We have to stop then, right? I love this. Rebecca, thank you so much. Knew Shane was someone special back in October 2018. Absolutely spot on. Thank you for sharing, sweetie. So, man, that's crazy. I love that story. Now, share with us some other story, man, because now you ended up that's sweet too. Look at that. Happy belated anniversary, Shane.
Oh, thank you, Angie. Thank you, Becca, as well.
Love it. Love the love. Thanks, everybody. So I gotta ask, man, because now you work for ClickFunnels, man. Share a little bit how that became about, and share with the people, because I keep saying, like, look, become a fearless father is all about being a dadpreneur. You work 9 to 5 with ClickFunnels, but ClickFunnels at the same time is promoting, like, it's really for the entrepreneurs, right? So, man, that job must be fulfilling.
Man. Yeah, to say the least, fulfilling's a good way to put it, man. Here's the deal. Like, I was working at a job. Like I said, I was working at different companies, bodybuilding.com. I'd been there for almost 5 years. I love that job, but I had my best friend growing up works for ClickFunnels, and I remember he had been working for a company here in our local valley as well for quite some time. He'd been there for quite a few years, and he made the jump over to ClickFunnels to take a chance. And I remember just kind of watching his story. Obviously, I talked to him every day and seeing how things were and what was it like making the change from what you were used to and this and that. And in October of 17, there was an opening for a billing support specialist over at ClickFunnels. Like, I didn't know anything about software, anything like that, but I had heard of ClickFunnels just because my best friend was working there. And I was like, man, I was at a management position over at my other job. I was, kind of finally working my way up and doing my thing. But I had hit this moment in my life, Klaas. I was like, I was doing a podcast on the side. That's like my passion. I was doing my full-time job. I'd finally graduated from college. I got my bachelor's degree, and I was like, I need to find something. And my son was a year old, and I'm like, dude, I need to take a jump. I need to take a leap. And so this billing support specialist, in reality, if you're really like looking at it in this way, it was almost like a step down in title, so to speak. But it was, when you actually get into the nitty gritty of things, like when I got over to ClickFunnels, a billing support specialist was almost more important than what I was doing over bodybuilding.com, if we're being 100% real. So like the title itself kind of rubs people the wrong way. And they're like, oh, well, you took a demotion in title. That's not necessarily true at all. But because the billing support specialists over at ClickFunnels do a lot of work. I'm just saying that. But when I went over there, I took this leap of faith. And then I was in like just being around people like Russell Brunson and Dave Woodward and Brent Copeters and all the partners that actually live in Boise, this area here in Idaho. Like it was almost surreal. Like it was so motivating, and it still is to this day. Obviously now I'm the One Funnel Away coordinator now that they've launched the One Funnel Away challenge. So I've been able to work my way into this role, and just seeing like not only what Russell's teaching and the new things that he's got going on, the creativity that's in his brain. It helped me because I have my podcast that I do on the side, like, but I don't like to call it a side hustle because it's my true passion. So I do my podcast, and it helps me be able to find new ways to be innovative with that. But it's like also, so you see his creative ways, and it's super motivating just being around the employees for one, but then seeing people like yourself. And, you know, we had Angie and Rebecca and all of these other people that have gone through the One Funnel Away challenge. I mentioned like we get roughly 6,000 people every challenge that come through, and seeing the successes that they have is just unreal. So I'm like sitting here like, oh my goodness. I just talked to one of my church leaders last night about this actually. And I was telling him how sometimes I'm sitting there and people are like, well, you work a 9 to 5 and they promote like entrepreneurship. How do you feel about that? And I'm like, I love it because it's super motivating for me to be around it. And if I didn't have that 9 to 5, I wouldn't be able to be around people like yourself. So I get to build connections with super, super cool people because I have a 9 to 5. But, I was telling him sometimes I'll sit there and I'm doing the One Funnel Away challenge, and I see people that never even had built a sales funnel or had never published something before, or never created an offer or any of this stuff, and they're starting to go through with it. And I sometimes I sit back and I'm like, why don't I do that? Like, why am I not doing that? But it's just cool for me because I get to be around a lot of cool people and I learn a lot. And I love to learn. That's one of the biggest things about me, man, is I just like to learn new things because I feel like when I'm learning, I'm actually progressing. That's just something that's always been in my mind. And so it's cool for me to be around not only the good employees, the CEO that's almost the best genius marketing guru in the world, but also people like yourselves that are, you know, entrepreneurs that I get to see build up their businesses from the ground up. It's awesome. Right on, right on.
So just for the people that are either listening right now or listening later on and have no idea, OVA challenge, what the heck, what are these guys talking about? Share real quick, man, in a nutshell, what is it about? What is it? And why is it such an amazing challenge to go through for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, the One Funnel Away challenge is, I think it's one of the best ideas that any company for that matter has ever come up with. I credit Russell Brunson 100% for this. It's a genius idea. So basically, if you already are into business, you own a business, or you have this, you know, passion and drive that you want to start something and sell a product, whether you're already a business owner or not, it's a 1 month program that essentially holds your hand day by day throughout the entire month. And people might say that it's overkill. Well, it's not. And the reason it's not overkill is because the reason that all these people have never moved forward with their businesses is because they get stuck on one spot or another. Because there is a lot of moving pieces to building a business. There's a lot of things that you should be implementing and they just don't know it yet. So we literally take your hand and we walk you step by step. We talk about the whole first week. If you remember, it's just all pre-training. We're trying to get you to believe in yourself. Like that's the whole idea. So Russell will do a daily training every single day. And then starting in week 1, we don't even touch funnel building. We don't even actually make the website until week 3. Like you're talking about offer creations and the importance of building an offer around your product or service instead of just selling a product. Like there's a huge psychological factor to that when it comes to sales. So we teach you all about the importance of, you know, offer creation. And then week 2, we'll teach you the importance of using your origin story and selling through storytelling, whether it's publishing on a podcast, doing some videos like this, or if you're doing a blog or whatever it may be. Publishing is huge when it comes to sales. When you see Russell Brunson's face on social media, you know him because he's all over the place because he publishes. So we talk about that. And then we get into week 3, which is actually implementing everything we learned in the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, if you include pre-training week, and we start putting it into a funnel. So we build a website using the software and we build that sales funnel day by day. We go page by page. We don't just say, okay, week 3, here we go, put the thing together. No, we're going to be like, okay, here's your squeeze page. Here's your sales page. Here's your thank you page. Like we're going to go day by day and build each page out using everything you learned. And then in week 4, we tackle the next beast, which is driving traffic to that funnel. So there's all these factors in online marketing that you have to tackle, and we try to do it in a month. And sometimes people get a little overwhelmed because there is a lot of stuff, but we try to do it in a way that's effective, where we're going to hold your hand and help you out. And then by the end of week 4, you at least have a grasp on the way that things should be done so that you can go and roll with all that information later on.
Exactly. Yeah, it was very powerful. Just to get people an idea, right? Well, one of the cool things I want to mention, thanks to you, Shane, I got the opportunity to be live with Russell himself, which was, man, I'm sweating now because it's hot, but then I was sweating. It wasn't even hot, man. I'm so nervous, but it was absolutely one of the most amazing things that happened that year. Besides just the business popping off. Now, I got to admit, Muay Thai Pro doesn't exist anymore. I made the decision to completely focus on becoming a fearless father. However, that said, man, we're talking about, since that day, I've sent out 130 emails. So every day it's an email according to Russell's strategy, right? I've been live every single day except for this week. I'm live as an interviews, but I'm not live myself. I'm going through a little bit of structural changes, but I've done that, and that has helped me tremendously to grow organically. Like what we're talking about, right? The traffic thing is absolutely insane. And I'm loving it, man. About to reach 100 live interviews this month.
Oh, congratulations.
So, thanks, man. It's just been an insane journey, and all that thanks to OFA and thanks to your motivation to help me keep going. Because sometimes you're just like, man, another day. I can't handle Steve Larson's energy.
Can't match it all the time. It's tough.
Right, but it's amazing, man. I warned my mom. I said, he's got some energy that likes next level. So you got to be ready for that. But yeah, it was absolutely amazing, man. So I highly recommend anybody listening to check it out. There's some amazing offers around that people promote OFA. So do it, man. What I got to ask you, all right? You mentioned like your kid's almost 3. What's one of the biggest things that you've learned that you can share with other dads out there that's like, okay, this is a great tip that I've learned that I'd love to share?
As far as being a parent with the kid?
As far as being a dad. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I stay pretty busy, right? And it's easy to get caught up in the work life. And you can see behind me, I got stuff all over the place. We had to pack it up and live with the parents for the next couple months while our house being built. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on in life, whether it's work, the podcast, whatever. But the biggest thing for me, especially after the first year of being a dad, like I wasn't used to the whole thing, is embracing and finding time to hang out with your family. In the last about year and a half or so, I really put a focus on that, making sure that like, okay, I have all this other stuff, but I need to prioritize my time, and my focus needs to go to my family. And with that being said, Klaas, what I've been able to do as a dad is like my 3-year-old or close to be 3-year-old is literally my best friend. Like, I love him. He talks now. Him and I hang out. Like, I enjoy hanging out with him. Even though he's limited on what he can do. I mean, he'll run around and do stuff, but it's not like I can go play basketball and shoot on a 10-foot hoop with him. Go to the store, like, I mean, soon he'll be doing that. But when we go to the store and stuff, like, I just enjoy hanging out with him. Like, I talk to him like a normal person because he's a little human being. And so by being able to focus my energy on my family and not always worry about this or that, like being able to unplug when you come home and plug back into your family and unplug from the podcast and plug back into the family, it's allowed me to build a relationship with my wife, a better relationship with my wife, and build a friendship with my son. And I think that's hugely important. It's important for any dad or any parent for that matter to be involved with their kids and just be a friend so that they have someone they can lean on when they get older, because this world's only getting worse, man. Like, I mean, I love, the fact that we have this opportunity to go through life and learn, but the world's getting nasty out there. And I fear certain things happening when he gets older. And if he has a best friend in me, just like I have a best friend in him, we can lean on each other and it just builds from there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Just on a quote, I have a friend in you. What's that song of?
You got a friend in me. Toy Story, man.
There you go. So his soon to come favorite movies, which you're gonna watch 20 times.
He actually loves toy. We just introduced Toy Story 1, 2, and 3 to him about a week and a half ago, and he can't get enough of them. So we're going to have to go see Toy Story 4 with him now because he loves it.
Nice. That's awesome, man. I love it. So let me ask you, man, because you mentioned some of the things, right? you work in your 9 to 5. You got travel time, of course. Then you got your passion. I just wrote down, because I first wrote down side hustle, and then you said it's not side hustle, so I wrote that out. So I called it podcast passion, right?
Yeah,
it sounds better. So and then you got your podcast passion, right? Which I think you also traveled for that, because I saw that you went out actually even to podcast at some other places, which looked really, really cool. I'm just wondering, because I had to deal with this, man. Sometimes you feel guilty for spending so much time on building your business, building your passion, coaching, talking to others, right? Because you got all that quality time with others that you're motivating, etc. And there comes guilt that you're not spending that quality time or that focused time with your kid or with your wife, right?
Right.
How is that for you, and how did you deal with that? Because now you mentioned, like, I'm really focused, but in the beginning it was a little different. But I'd love to hear your point of view on that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's something I think we should all be aware of. Like, as parents, it's difficult, because like you have one side of you that has to provide for your family. Like, that is the biggest thing as a dad, as a parent, whatever. We have to provide for our families in some form or fashion. And sometimes that comes with sacrifice, as far as like maybe you don't have as much time with the families you'd like. But the time that you do have, you've got to give it your all. And so what I learned, and this is interesting, I'll just share this story with you guys if you don't mind.
Share.
So I had a conversation with a buddy of mine. He actually works at ClickFunnels now, but he used to work with me at bodybuilding.com. And him and I were talking about, it was right when my son was born, so it's almost been 3 years. And we were talking about what we're going to tell our kids later on when they get older, and we tell them to live their dreams. Like, you need to live your dream. And they say, well, what was your dream? And so my fear is this, like, my son asks me, like, so Decker asks me, Dad, what was your dream? And I say, well, I wanted to be a sports analyst. That's what I went to school for. That's what I grew up loving. I wanted to talk sports and be able to meet sports figures and travel the world doing that. And what if he says, well, why didn't you do that? And I say, well, I got a job that paid the bills, and that's kind of what was more important. And then he's going to say, well, why do you want me to follow my dreams no matter what? Like, why would you tell me to follow mine and just to keep going for them if you found something that kind of deterred you from that? And so I don't want to have that conversation with him, because I think that's critical. So my whole thing is this, like, I want to be able to show my son that I was able to fulfill my dream, but in a non-traditional way. So like, I might not be working for ESPN right now. I might be working a full-time job and then doing the podcast as a separate job. But I'm fulfilling my dream as being a sports analyst, because I'm building connections with people in the sports industry while I'm doing these other things. And if I can do that and still focus all of my time when I have the availability to my family, then my son will grow up later on and be like, okay, he did it, I can do it too. And so the biggest thing with me is the first thing that comes is my 9 to 5, because whatever pays the bills is my first thing. So I do that. And if my podcast, I've learned this now in the last year and a half or so, is when if I'm scheduling out an interview, I get to call the shots of when that interview is kind of done. Like, obviously I want my guests on my show to be, have it convenient. But if they say, well, I can only do this day, and that happens to be a time where, like, if it's a Tuesday night at 7:00, if my wife and I already had plans or something like that with the family, I'm going to say, no, we're going to reschedule it. I'll reschedule it, because that's not going to work for me. So I call the shots a little bit more now in regards to that. I'm a little bit more aware. There are nights I'll schedule it out in advance. Say, hey, Friday night at 7:00, as long as I'm done by 8, I should be good. Okay, cool. Boom. And I get it done in that block of time. And I'm just more aware of the time that I'm spending. I'm more efficient with my time. Whenever I'm doing my podcast or I'm working, I'm efficient, so that when I am done, I can spend that time with my family. So my biggest thing is just be efficient, be aware of time. And that way, when you have that allotted time with your family, with your son or daughter, whatever it may be, you're spending that time with them. Because sometimes, man, like, you don't even have to be doing anything, but your kids will build a connection with you if you're just around them. If you're just sitting on the couch and they're watching Blippi on the YouTube channel, like, they'll build a connection with you because you're sitting there. You know what I mean? I think that's important.
Yeah, I was thinking about the next question, but I absolutely hear you, man. So let me ask you this, because you mentioned something. You said, like, look, the world, it's just looking bad, worse out there, and it looks like it's not getting any better anytime soon, even though, you myself and a lot of other ClickFunnels members and entrepreneurs, that's what we hear, right? We want to make a positive impact in the world, and we're trying our best. But what's because, and it ties a little bit in what you just said, right? You want your son to follow his dreams. What's your vision for your son, man? Are you thinking about, how do I want my son to live? What do I want my son to learn from me besides following his dream?
Well, I want him to be a good person, right? So like I have my fair share of flaws, and I think everybody does. I've got like, hey, you go and watch me play a basketball game for an hour and you'll be like, whoa, that's not the same Shane I know. Because you get me in a competitive setting, my mouth starts going. I say things that I would never say at work because, I mean, you get in a competitive setting, stuff like that. Like he's watching. And so I want him to be able to, be a good person and have an impact on the world. So that's one thing I'm working with, for myself, because one of my biggest pet peeves is hypocrites, Klaas. I can't stand the parents that say this or that, but they don't practice what they preach. And I'm guilty of it sometimes myself. Like if I'm going to tell him, don't start cursing at everybody, well, then I need to shut my mouth when I'm on the basketball court then when he's watching, because that's hypocritical. Why can I do it and he can't? I want my son to be positive. And regardless of what his dreams and his passions are, I want to, if we're going to make the world a better place, the biggest thing it comes down to, this sounds cliche, is just being nice to people and getting to know people. And that's, I mean, I think you and I share that, this particular thing in common. It's building relationships with people is super important. So when I have my platform for my podcast, I get to meet so many amazing people. And when I have that connection with these people and I build these relationships, I feel like that relationship building process that's me doing my part and being nice to people and being kind. I'm letting them use my platform to share their stories. I'm allowed to get to meet them and see them from a different perspective. And I think if you're just nice to people and you understand what people are going through, or at least understand that not everybody's cookie cutter, and you actually look at that as like, that's a cool thing in the world. If we're not all cookie cutter people, we're not all the same. And that's actually a blessing of being a human being. It's kind of cool. Otherwise, everybody be the exact same. We learn from one another. And as long as he understands that and he's nice to people, that will be the biggest lesson in life, because everything else falls into place. Follow your dreams, this and that, but be kind to people, get to know people, and do your hardest not to judge people. It's our natural human instinct to judge. I do it all the time. I'm the first to admit it. But I can tell you right now in my life, when I try to take a step back and see other people's perspectives first before jumping to a conclusion, that's when I seem to learn the most. And I want him to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Angie is right also. Our children are the best accountability partners we can ask for. Absolutely true. Thanks for sharing, Angie. I appreciate that. So I want to talk about something. I hadn't planned on touching that topic, but you mentioned something that's important, right? Our kid's cursing, right? He's 3 now. He's starting to pick out words, stuff like that. And I handled it wrong the first time when my son, son started walking through the house. He heard a word. I can't remember if it was from me or from my wife. And he was, of course, it's Spanish, right? So it's puta.
Yeah, I know.
Puta. But he has no idea what it means. However, I went off. I'm like, what are you saying? And then my wife goes, you really think that he understands what it means? I'm kind of like, no, I actually didn't think of that. Right? So I'm just wondering, man, because I changed my whole view in regards to cursing. Like, I don't want them to curse at people. However, sometimes in the emotion, you're just like using an F word, using whatever word it is, right? It happens. What's your philosophy on that when it comes to that? Because what you're saying is true, man. If you don't want your son to curse, you can't curse. And I'm even harder on that than you are, where you're saying, like, I'm on the court, my kid's watching, so I can't. But for me, it's like, no. You're the example, meaning if he's not there, you also can't, right? That's me. That's my philosophy, right? So I decided, look, my kids can curse as long as it's not at somebody, because I can't control myself. So I'm really curious to know what your philosophy is on that.
Man, that's tough. And that's the thing. Like, I have the worst mouth when it comes to stuff, like, especially in sports. Like, I have the worst mouth. And for me, as I know exactly, because I'm speaking from experience, even if I'm not cursing at other people, if I'm at the house and I say something, I stub my toe, whatever it may be, right? And I drop an F-bomb here or there, whatever it is. Just even doing that, though, builds habits. It's like anything else. And I think my my cursing throughout my life, even though I don't consider myself the worst in the world, but like, yeah, like I would drop some bombs when I'm on the court. It all comes from habits that I had doing the little things when no one was watching, right? It's like, this is why I love sports so much though, because you can learn so many lessons. It's like the coaches always say, it's the stuff that the little things you do, the things you talk about, the way you conduct yourself off the court, the way that you conduct yourself when the coach isn't there. Are you putting in time in the morning, shooting around for an hour, doing shooting drills? Are you going 100% when you're doing those things? Those are the things that actually matter. Because then when you actually get on the court and there's you get to see the full product on the court when the time comes. It's the same concept in life, right? It's the little things we do when no one's watching that builds those habits and builds the personality and such. So for me, it's awesome because I don't want him to curse. And I'll just tell you right now, when I saw he said a few things already. And my biggest fear is like a church that I go to, they have a nursery for like the little kids, right? So the little kids go to the nursery while the adults go to their Sunday school stuff. And I was terrified he was going to say something in the nursery because like I heard him say it. It was like 2 days prior to that, and I laughed. I have a problem. My wife and I actually hid behind the hallway and started laughing because it was kind of funny to us, which is probably a terrible thing. But I just don't want him to build a habit of it. And so my philosophy is this: like I want to stop it as soon as possible, because if you can stop it now and form new habits earlier in life, I feel like it can help you out later on. And cursing's not the biggest deal in the world. Like, as long as you're not cursing at other people and stuff, but it's just about the little things. Cause you never know. Maybe you're mad at work one day and your boss hears you drop an F-bomb at your desk or something like that. And you never know what can happen. Someone might watch you one day that you didn't realize was listening, and it could have a detrimental impact on your life. So that's the whole thing for me, is like, I'm trying to be better. But you're right. If I'm on the basketball court and he's not there, I should still be shutting my mouth and just play the game, because it's good for me too. It's not just to be an example, it's to be a good person and just kind of set that, because I don't know, it's hypocritical in my opinion. And I'm trying to work on that myself, man, but I am awful at it. Except I only swore twice on Monday in our game. So that was pretty good. And that was just at myself. I swore because I missed 2 baskets.
No, I like that, man. I like your honesty. I appreciate that. I find it funny. Well, let me go into this, right? What I find most funny is those parents that you hear cursing, they're in a conversation, they curse, and then their son stands next to them or something like that, and they say something, and they get like, because their friends are there, they start yelling at their kids, and I'm just looking like, but you just cursed, and that was okay, right? Or they burp or something like that, and they go off, right? Because now they're embarrassed in front of their friends. It's like, dude.
Let me tell you something here in regards to that real quick. It's funny you said that. 3 weeks ago, we have basketball games every Monday night, and we play outdoors. So it's hot, summertime now, okay? Things get heated. People in the heat of competition, plus it's hot outside. Everyone's tired and whatever. So at the end of the game, it was a little bit of what we call a chippy game. It was getting physical, and it was an ugly game for that matter. But we ended up winning by like 10 points. At the end of the game, one of their players, he's a little bit older than me, but he's kind of chippy, and he has a mouth on him. And so obviously him and I were going back and forth, doing a little trash talk. And it was, oh boy. So this is what I found funny is he got mad at me because I told him to shut his mouth. And that was literally what I said. I told him to shut his mouth. He thought I cursed at him. I didn't, but I did. I just told him to shut his mouth. Anyways, we get back and forth. He gets in my face. He tries to throw a punch at me, misses, but then it gets really, really crazy. And so he's sitting there, and he has 2 kids sitting there. And he's trying to give me a life lesson. And he grabs his keys to go back in to get something out of his trunk, because he was trying to, I got a little bit heated, and he was trying to get back at me. And I thought he was going to grab something and come beat me up or whatever. But he's sitting there screaming at me about, you don't ever talk to a man like that. I'll knock you out, blah, 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 blah. And he's dropping bombs, this and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, wow, like I probably shouldn't have said what I said. If we're really looking at it, I probably shouldn't have escalated things. But like, you got your 2 kids literally watching right here as you go to your trunk, your car, to grab something to come beat me up. Like, it kind of bothered me a little bit. I'm like, that almost bothered me more than he was talking trash to me. I'm like, don't be a hypocrite, man. Like, you're sitting here, your kids are watching you, man, and they're older than my son. So I was like, that's not good.
No, you know what those kids are gonna do.
Man, you just got to be careful. You got to be cautious. I'm guilty of it too, though. I need to be cautious of what I'm doing as well.
Cool, man. Cool. As I said, man, I appreciate your honesty, but that's the way we grow, right? We make mistakes, we learn from them, and then we try to improve. And sometimes that works out really well, sometimes not so well. We just learn another lesson. Cool, man. I appreciate that. So, as you mentioned, man, you set dates, right, to hang out with your wife and be really intentional with her. And share a little bit about that, man, because it's important. And I've noticed that a lot of dadpreneurs, right, they're so focused on their business, and all of a sudden, wife, child, they don't come on that first spot anymore, as you said, like where they should be. Share a little bit of how are you trying to be intentional to spend time with your wife?
Yeah. So that's a good question. And I learned this from a coworker of mine over at ClickFunnels. Actually, it's the whole concept of having like a specific day. Like I don't do this all the time because we are pretty busy, but like one day a week, we need to have a day, like whether that's a Friday night or a Saturday morning, where the family goes out and does something, whether it's my wife and I or my wife and my son and I. Like it just, we need to go out and do something. So the lady at work was saying how her and her husband still to this day, every Friday night is date night. That's their date night. They go out regardless of where they go. They go. They have a date night, even if it's just for an hour where they get to go out as a alone time, go out to dinner, whatever it is. And I take it to heart because I think that they like, even though we work all day, like we have our nights together, like we get home from work, cook dinner, this and this and this. And like sometimes we'll go swimming or do this or that. The week is kind of busy, but we still have our time together at night. But like on the weekends or any day where we're not working, it's a goal of mine to spend part of that time specifically with my family, where you can just focus on that. So we have some hiking trails here in Idaho. So like Saturday mornings, we'll put Decker up on the backpack and we'll go hiking, you know, and even though it's something that she likes to do, it's getting out and being active. It's something I need to do because I've gained some pounds. And so I need to get out and be active. So it's just something for us to be able to go do, enjoy the outdoors and hang out, even if it's only like an hour-long hike. So we do stuff like that. Sometimes on Friday nights, we'll go to our local mall and just walk around. And it's interesting what you can do. Like my son loves being around people, so he'll like just walk around with us. And we just go out for 2 hours and walk around the local mall and enjoy people watching. We just could go out there and enjoy it. So we try to take the days that we don't have work, that we know that we don't have work the next day, and specifically use 1 or 2 of those days to truly just hang out as a family, just be around each other. I think that's super important because, yeah, the world's so busy, man. Like everyone's busy, whether you're running a business, you're in school, whatever it is, the world's so busy and so easy to get distracted. And I think once we actually put a focus on that, you'll see like an immense change in not only your relationship with your spouse or your significant other, but with your children.
Absolutely, man. Yep, totally agree with you. And that change is good for everybody. And actually that helps you within your business, right? I had a live interview this morning with Mike Maitland, right? To Come Cup Award winner. And that's what he was sharing. It's like, when I have had a fight with my wife, then my business would also suffer because, you know, you're just thinking about that and it just wouldn't work. Well, when she's happy, I'm happy, business goes well. So I'm like, yeah, it kind of makes sense.
Totally.
So appreciate that, man. So what you mentioned, man, you said, you know, you're always trying to learn, you're always trying to progress, right? So share a little bit about that, man. What are some of the tricks, or what are some of the things that you must do each day, for example, to know for a fact, like, okay, yeah, today again, I've progressed, I've learned some new stuff. What are some of the things that you do to guarantee that happening?
For sure. So let's flash back to 2008 for this question. So I served a mission for my church, and when I did that, I went to Brazil. So Brazil, we left down there. I was there for 2 years, and you leave your family and go down there for 2 years. And I didn't know how to speak Portuguese. I absolutely, like, I had done 1 semester of college prior to my mission, and I hated it. I just didn't like learning. I never cared about school or anything like that. But when I was on my mission, the first 60 days of the mission, you're in what we call the Missionary Training Center. And that's where you learn how to speak Portuguese and you learn the culture of Brazil a little bit. But we were down in Sao Paulo, and we're literally in one building, and it's almost like going to jail because you're in there for 60 days and it's pretty extensive. It's like 10 hours of a classroom every single day for 60 days. It's 4 years of college worth of a language study in 60 days. That's exactly what it is. So it's pretty extensive. And what I found out there was, like, I just didn't know how to learn. And it wasn't that I didn't know how to learn. It was that I did not enjoy learning. I think that's the biggest piece. And so everybody else was picking up the language of Portuguese so easily. And I was struggling. I was struggling to figure out, like, why this other language, why there's conjugations of every single verb. I didn't understand what that even meant. And I was like, well, this is stupid. And I had a bad attitude. And so it actually hindered my development. And about 7 months later, I was still trying to pick up the language. I was now living in the city that I was supposed to be in, and we were no longer in the missionary training center. And I had a Brazilian companion who couldn't speak English. And so we literally talked to each other out of a dictionary all day long. And I'm like, man, like and I could put phrases and sentences together enough to like speak to people, but it was broken up Portuguese. And I was like, this sucks. And so I made a commitment at that time. That was still in 2008. I made a commitment to essentially figure out how to learn and enjoy it. So I started saying, okay, well, I'm not the most fluent in Portuguese yet, but as long as tomorrow I know something different than I knew today, then that'll be fine. So I just took it day by day, and every single morning I just commit to learning. I'd go through and memorize every single verb, the conjugations of those verbs, and I made a goal. As long as I know something tomorrow that I didn't know today, then I've learned. And it became something that was almost like addictive. I was like, this is awesome. I started picking up the language. I became very fluent in the language, almost, and just to be 100% real, like I was more fluent in the language than a lot of the people that started with me and picked it up a lot faster than me. By the time about 8-9 months into my mission, I actually understood all the grammatical systems of Portuguese, and I spoke it better than them. And it was just because I'm not trying to say that to brag, but it was because I changed my mindset to enjoy learning. And then it became addictive. And then I was like, this is amazing. So then we fast forward a little bit. It changed my whole mindset in college and in everything, like business and in college. Like when I went to college before my mission, I absolutely hated it. I still hate school. But the thing is when I was there, like, I just enjoyed like, okay, so this class I find to be pointless because I don't need this in real life. But as long as I know why she's trying to teach us this and I have an understanding, then at least I know more about how to write a paper in APA format than I did prior. So I enjoyed learning the entire learning process. And then when it comes to business, the whole process is, and this is what I try to teach all the people that we're talking to in the One Funnel Away Challenge, just enjoy learning. So many people get caught up in like, oh, well, so-and-so knows more than me and they're so far ahead of me. This and this and this and this. Stop worrying about that, because the second you just start to enjoy learning, you'll start building your personal progression. And that shows, like, as long as you know more today than you knew yesterday, even if it's just one thing, then that is a personal progression. You may not be up at the level of this person in this regard, but I can guarantee you know more than them in something you know more than. And so that's what I used to tell people. I'm like, I don't know how to build a funnel. I don't know how to build sales funnels, but I sure as heck know how to publish a podcast and produce a show, which takes a lot to do. Like what takes people about 15 hours of work takes me about 2, because I've done it all myself and I understand the processes. So yeah, I don't know how to build a funnel. I don't know all this stuff, the nitty gritty stuff of that, but I can sure as heck publish and show you how to do that. So you just understand that you can't compare yourself to other people all the time. And as long as you know something more today than you knew yesterday, that's the whole process. So I just enjoy learning, man. Like, it's sometimes things get overwhelming, but if you just enjoy the journey, you'll be amazed at how much more you know now than like a year ago. And you'll be like, man, I really know a lot. And it's kind of cool. You look back and you're like, this whole life is a learning process.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually posted something, I think yesterday or the day before. It's like, you just look. So sometimes it's good to look behind and see how much you've grown, right? It's very important to do that. So absolutely, man. I like what you shared. It's so important, man. We're so focused on that huge goal, like, oh yeah, we got to achieve that, instead of just looking like, look, man, what can you learn today that you didn't know yesterday, so you can grow. So yeah, great message. So you've been talking about it a lot, man, your podcast passion, right? So share a little bit with us, like what's Game Time Guru, what's the story behind that, why did you do it, and what's the vision, man? Where are you trying to go with all of this?
Yeah, man. So the Game Time Guru, you can see my hat right here. I just got a new hat representing, and I got my shirt on. So anyways, it's a sports podcast. And like I said earlier, like, it's not a side hustle to me. Like, obviously in the terms of what people consider a side hustle, yes, it would be considered a side hustle because that's what I do. I'm building it up on the side of my full-time job, but it is my true passion. It's what I've always wanted to do, is be a sports analyst. So flashback 2017, I'm in my final year at Boise State. We have a guy over at Boise State University who does the play-by-play announcing for the football team, and he does a talk show host here locally for sports radio. He's a well-known guy around the valley here where I live. His name's Bob Beeler. So Bob was in our class. I'm asking him tons of questions. I'm like the oldest kid in class at that time. Everybody else in college was like 20, 21. I'm 27 at the time. I was almost 28. And so I'm asking him tons of questions. and just wanted to know what I needed to do to be able to get into that field of work, because I was about to graduate and I had a full-time job at the time, and I was just trying to see like, well, what would I have to do to even get my name in there to be considered for a job in this field? And he told me same thing that Russell Brunson and everybody else teaches, but this is before I ever worked for Russell. He said, you need to go home and you need to record something. Like if you don't have anything on record, they're never going to look at you, because you don't know how to produce a show. You don't know how you sound on record, on file. Like you don't know how you sound. So you need to record something. And even if it's just for fun and it's fake, just record your voice and have tons of stuff on file and try to progress. But you can't just go into a job saying, oh, well, I love sports. There's a ton of people who love sports, so they're not going to be able to talk on camera or on a talk show just because they know sports. It's a whole new skill set. So I took that to heart, and I went home and I was like, hey, I sounded stupid just talking into a computer, to be honest. I was like, this is stupid. I might as well make this something real, so I actually feel like I'm doing something productive. And so I started researching how to do a podcast. And I didn't know anybody who did podcasts. That's before Anchor was around and all this stuff. So I was like doing tons of research. It took me a while, but I enjoyed learning it. There's a lot of little pieces that I didn't realize, like what's an RSS feed? What's a cover art for a podcast? What dimensions do they need to be? What's a podcast hosting platform? What's the best equipment to use? How much am I going to have to pay to get into this? So like a lot of stuff I didn't realize, but I went and I learned it all and I started it. The Game Time Guru is a podcast where I get to talk sports every week, and I interview people in the sports industry. So it's an interview-based podcast. Sometimes I'll do my own show where I'm talking, but it's not just sports recaps and stuff. My whole goal with it, Klaas, was to show people that sports are not just for dumb jocks. That's like what we call dumb jocks, just the dumb dudes in high school that couldn't get good grades. They're just sports athletes and they're dumb. They're just not. And that's like the stereotype that people have. But sports teach you so much more than that. So I bring on people within the sports industry all over the world. We're talking sports analysts, ESPN analysts that were working for, big name networks. I talk to athletes, whether they're professional athletes, collegiate athletes, high school athletes, whatever it may be. And I talk to them and let them share their journeys, much like you're doing here on Become a Fearless Father. I just ask them more sports related questions and how it's helped them in their businesses later on after sports. But the biggest thing is I get to talk to people from all types of sports backgrounds. We're talking women athletes that play professional hockey, basketball, soccer, whatever. I talked to a guy who plays wheelchair rugby because he's a quadriplegic. He had an accident when he was in high school. And so I got to talk to him about that, how sports still give him an opportunity to do something, be a part of something. So I get to talk to a lot of people. And that's one of my biggest things here is I get to meet a lot of new people. What I see going forward with the Game Time Guru, at first, it was just a hobby and it was something fun. And I wanted to it was a resume builder like Bob Beeler told me to do. Now I've built it into a brand with a following. And I want to continue on with it. And just as an interesting thing, if you or anyone else is out there and still trying to figure out, like, you don't know what's next, I'm going to talk about consistency real quick. I've been publishing consistently every single week for over 2 years. Every Friday I have a new episode and I just consistently push out content. I have a Instagram page, Twitter page, Facebook page. Sometimes I get good engagement, sometimes I don't, but I've been consistently publishing on all those platforms. Been doing my podcast for 2 years. A couple weeks ago, I had an interview with this 51-year-old college football player, and he's playing college football. He's 51 years old. It's awesome. It's a cool story. So I wanted to get him on my show. Because of that interview, I randomly, because he had shared it with his platform, some company called Nation's Best Football out of Virginia here in the United States reached out to me, and we have been collaborating for about 3 weeks now. And I'm going to be, after this collaboration, they liked what I did. They loved the work that I put into that. They loved the way that I conducted the interview. They thought it was an amazing platform. So now I'm going to be their official podcast host for their channel. And what we're going to do is we've just opened up an opportunity as of yesterday. We're in the process of building out a brand new podcast specifically for them, which I will host. And we're going to be interviewing high school recruits. So anyways, it's a long story. It's going to be an amazing opportunity that came from the Game Time Guru and publishing consistently. So just so you guys know, if you don't think anyone's listening or it's not going anywhere or whatever, listen to the market and what they're telling you. Make some adjustments as necessary, but realize to enjoy the journey. Just enjoy it. And somebody will watch or listen later on, even if it takes 2 years. And that's what happened to me. And so big opportunities are starting to come about from it now.
Love it, man. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks, man.
I just wanted to say, man, you can't talk about women's soccer. I'm still hurting.
Hey, we're not.
No, yeah.
Back
Fun.
back.
People that don't understand, I'm Dutch, Shane is American. It was the World Cup 2019, USA versus the Netherlands in the final, and well, the Netherlands is not there yet, so that's okay. We're very proud and happy. It just was a sad moment, especially
They
because
fought hard though. They fought really hard actually in that match. I mean, it was actually a really close. I didn't think the U.S. dominated that match by any means. They got a good penalty kick, and then they caught one later in the game that was pretty good, but it's a good shot. But it was a good game, man. Netherlands have an upside to them, man. They're going to be good.
Yeah, exactly. They've been European champions, so we were just hoping, because the male never got got that World Cup. They've been in the final as well. Now the females as well. They also lost, so it's a sore spot.
I understand.
That's fine, man. Look, in regards to your podcast passion, man, for one, really congratulations, man. I love the fact that you're sharing that. I think it's an important message. Besides that, it's great to share. How many episodes have you done, man? And what's your following like at the moment, so people can get an idea of what that looks like after 2 years of just being consistent?
Yeah. So this week, on tomorrow, Friday, we're going to be publishing episode 118. So the math doesn't add up. But the thing is there's 118 full episodes, but I've done bonus episodes in the middle of those too. So there's tons of episodes that have gone through. But I'm going to be on episode 118 for the actual interviews that I've done. When I first started the show, literally, I would publish once a week, so 4 times a month, and I'd get like 50 total downloads, right? So like that was awful. And I think most of those were coming from myself and my family. Like I was listening to it myself, trying to see what it sounded like. So like, quite honestly, there was nobody listening. Right now, it's anywhere between 2,000 to 4,000, 1,500 to 4,000 downloads a month. And it's all organic. My biggest thing was just being organic and being authentic. And I didn't want to pay into ads yet. Like I know that eventually I will need to, probably, if I want to actually reach and do that. But I'm getting it like just 2 months ago, hit 4,200 downloads in a month off 4 episodes, which was pretty good for me. Cause there's a lot of sports podcasts out there. It's a pretty big ocean, right? So it's hard to compete with some of the big names that have a lot of money, but, I'm doing what I do, and people are starting to jump on board, and that's how I got that opportunity. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah, I love that. Let me write something down there, because I think I spelled this correctly. I was looking for something to share. All right, so people can check this out on, I guess, everything, right? iTunes, Spotify, you're everywhere, right?
Yeah, every single podcast platform, it's there. You'll see me everywhere you go. But yeah, Apple Podcasts, if you have an iPhone, that's like the most popular, obviously, for podcasts, because it's built into your phone, preloaded app. But yeah, if you go in there, and you understand this, like reviews are super helpful. So if you ever listen to one of my shows, if you can leave me a review on the podcast app, it's super helpful, because you know how it is. If people consume media these days, they're more prone to listen to something that has a lot of reviews compared to something. Even though there's some out there that don't have any reviews and have amazing content, people are just more prone to listen to those that have reviews. So I just always ask, if you like one of my shows, leave me a review, even if it takes 5 seconds, whatever it is,
True that. So for the people that are watching right now, check it out, Game Time Guru, and listen to a couple of episodes, and make sure to leave a review. If you're not into sports, doesn't matter, man. We got to support Shane. I mean, it's his podcast passion, man, and that's important, especially us dadpreneurs. We gotta help each other out, man. So, that's awesome. See, Angie starts thinking about you immediately. Needs to put you in contact with her brother Maurice. Man, that would be awesome.
Yeah, message me. I'm all down. Like I will talk to anybody. I love when people give referrals. That's one of my favorite ways to talk to people, Angie. So referrals are my favorite.
Yep, true that. Thanks, Angie. Really appreciate that. Wait, and since where's that? Where did it go?
Played for the Dallas Mavericks, huh? Let's get him in contact with me. I'm dead serious. I would love to speak with him.
Awesome, man. Great. Angie, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. So I'm wondering from this as well, man, because you say it's a podcast passion. Are you monetizing this? What's the economical, if you can say that? What's the financial aspect for it to make it work and bring in some extra cash?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I get asked that quite a bit. People always just wondering, because everyone has a podcast now. Like, are you monetizing off of it? How do you monetize? Now, if I knew things now, Klaas, that like if I knew what I knew now back then when I first started there, I would do things a lot differently in the way that I launched the show and stuff like that, because it's been an uphill battle since then, because I'm like, oh man, I should have probably launched with like 8 episodes instead of just doing one at a time. Stuff like little tips and tricks that I know now. But so I have like affiliate sponsorships. And what I mean by that is, like, for instance, I have an affiliate link for Audible. So like I have a podcast sponsorship with Audible, which is like an audiobook free trial. So if you like audiobooks and whatnot, I have a link that they can use to sign up for an Audible free trial. I get $15 a pop off anybody who listens to that. So the good news is I've gotten some good cash off of that. But the thing is, you can only do that one time per listener. So it depends on how many listeners you're getting in that are new and actually want to sign up for a free trial. I sell merchandise. Like I have a hat, I got shirts and stuff like that. So I've monetized off of that, but there's nothing major. Like I haven't made tons of money. The biggest thing that I'm trying to do, and my boss, Brent, actually asked me this the other day, or a couple months ago, what do you want to be when you grow up? And how do you want to take this podcast to the next level? For me, what's happening with this new company that I landed with for my podcast stuff, they're getting me a media pass for Boise State football and Boise State athletics. So that will allow me to go to the games for free, and I can stand on the sidelines and then go to the press conferences. To me, that's monetizing for me, because that allows me to save money on everything and actually do what I want to do to build my resume. So that right there is one of the biggest things. I do have a media pass to the football games that I want to go to. If I were to land a sponsorship, which we're going to do with that new podcast that we're launching in a week, we're going to have a pretty nice sponsorship there. So I'll monetize off of that one. But for the Game Time Guru, I don't have a major sponsorship with it yet, but I would like to. There's proposals that I could send out to certain people, local businesses, but I haven't landed a major sponsorship. But if you're doing a podcast and you have enough following, those sponsorships, people will pay for those, because it's almost better than a radio ad for that matter. So, because it's a radio ad is only played when the radio show is going, but a podcast is always in the archives. So your ad will be heard multiple times later on. So just so you guys know, like, sponsorships are still a thing for podcasts, even though people might say they're not. No, they are. Businesses are looking for them. So I'm not monetizing off that yet with this, but I would love to submit some of the sponsorship proposals later on.
I hear. Sounds great, man. So always big on that, man. One of the things, but you mentioned you're not a big learner. What do you do to keep developing that you can? Like, you mentioned Audible. Are you on Audible? Is that the way that you try to work through books at the moment?
Yeah, so I do. I'll read. I hate reading for that matter, but like I will read certain books that are like intriguing to me. Like, for instance, a guy I'm going to have on my show tomorrow. If anyone's familiar with Netflix, there's a series on Netflix called Last Chance U. He's the head coach of the most recent football team that's on there. I'm going to have him on my show tomorrow. I'm interviewing him at noon tomorrow. But like stuff like that, like he wrote a book. So I'm going to read that book. I ordered it. It's supposed to come here today. So I'll read that physically. But like I do love audiobooks, because for me, the reason I like podcasts, I do podcasts because I consume podcasts. I can plug that in when I go to the gym. I can plug in a podcast when I go play basketball. I can plug it in when I'm going to work and just listen to it for 20 minutes on the ride to work, whatever it may be. So I love audio stuff. So Audible, yeah, I'll listen to audiobooks all the time. Like David Goggins' new book, Can't Hurt Me. I listen to that on the Audible setup too. So to me, it's an easier way for me to consume the content, because I feel like if I read it, it's going to take me a little bit longer to read a physical book unless I'm truly interested in it.
I hear you. So besides Can't Hurt Me, what are 2 other books that you can recommend that you're like, man, these were absolute must read, loved it?
Well, are you talking, because here's the deal, are you talking sports related books, or are you talking just anything like entrepreneurship and such?
I don't mind. Your favorite books. I just want to know what your favorite books are. You can share it right now.
Oh man, so people are going to think I'm a nerd just because they're sports books, but one of them was called Return of the King, and it was about LeBron James. It's a little book that's written by Brian Windhorst, who's an analyst here in the United States, regarding the 2016 season where the Cleveland Cavaliers won the NBA Finals, and it goes behind the scenes and talks about how LeBron James brought a championship to the city of Cleveland. And it talks about what happened in the locker rooms after games, stuff like that. And it's really interesting if you're a sports fan, because you get to hear the nitty gritty stuff that you don't get to see in the general public. So that was a really good book. And then Steve Young has a book. Steve Young was a famous quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, and it's called My Life Behind the Spiral. And my goodness, like I actually hated Steve Young when I was growing up, because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. And Steve Young used to have some major games against us, and I just didn't like him. I didn't like the 49ers, but I read that book to get a better perspective of his life, which, again, going back to everything, I love seeing everybody's perspectives now. It's one of my biggest passions. And that book is incredible because Steve Young talks about his battles with anxiety his entire life, and I battle with the similar issues. Anxiety is tough on me, and it can be crippling to people. And for him to be a high-profile athlete that you don't necessarily think would have that problem, his was crippling, like terribly crippling anxiety. So reading that book and hearing how he overcame that, even though it wasn't easy, was super interesting for me too.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you sharing that. Shane, man, thank you so much for being on. It's been an hour already. Time flew by. Man, I'm definitely blessed to have had you on my show. Thank you so much. Everybody else, especially Angie and Rebecca, thank you so much for your support and being on with us and sharing some of your experiences with Shane. I really appreciate that. Everybody else, thank you. I appreciate you all. We will be live again tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all there. Have a fantastic day, and we'll talk to you guys very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Are you still meeting up with your friends now that you're a father? Kids making you stress out. You got no time for yourself to work out, read, or relax. Can you still remember the time you were hanging out with your friends, feeling energetic, happy, and confident? Spending time together and talking about your life and your crazy dreams. You're feeling alone now, don't you? No one to share your challenges with, and you're just running around from one storm into the next. Well, it's time to change this now. Join me and the Brotherhood of Fearless Fathers to speak on a weekly basis with like-minded dads to crush your challenges, face your fears with determination, be held accountable, and regain control of your life. If you want to become the hero your family needs you to be, then go to becomeafearlessfather.com/brotherhood. I'm looking forward to seeing you on one of our next calls.